Hi, this is Mike Young with Noble Warriors. You're about to hear a message entitled The Battle for Men is Real. Are you using the right weapon? This workshop is presented by Todd Schlomann. Todd's the church relations specialist for Noble Warriors. He lives in Midlothian, Virginia. This workshop was presented as part of the Iron Sharpens Iron Men's Conference, hosted by Noble Warriors at Spotswood Baptist Church in Fredericksburg, Virginia on Saturday, March 8, 2014. I pray the message will challenge and encourage you as you walk with Christ and lead your family.
Okay, my name's Todd. I'm with Noble Warriors. This is what we do for a living, Mike and I. We work in the state of Virginia. That's sort of interesting. We've got a lot of feelers out all over the U.S. Mike's done several interviews on radio stations, FAR, some of national stuff, and all of a sudden we had a guy call from Florida, and we're mentoring him. I have a guy from Canada calls me up. We're in Midlothian, Virginia. Okay, now, so we're going to be up. Okay, technology is probably not a strong suit here. Okay. Okay. Let's go back. Sorry. Okay. Again, I mentioned this earlier, but one of the big struggles I see with churches, and if I'm in your way, we're going to have to work that out. It's okay? Okay. Okay. Yeah, I'm not exactly narrow. We all resemble that. But it's a tendency for churches to look for the next great material. And there is some great material out there, and we're going to hit some of them. And there's more of them, and we're a great resource for that. But we have realized that without the right strategy, without the understanding of discipleship, when I say strategy, it's the issue of how to disciple men is what we have to focus in on. So I'm going to be not just talking about strategy and not just talking about weapons. We're going to be looking at some strategy. We're going to look at some weapons, some strategy, weapons as we go along. So my goal is to see how do you use this piece with some strategy. Again, we do this all the time. This is only going to get you a scratch. And that's it. I want to scratch an itch and for you to recognize it. And then call us up in a month and I say a month because we have another conference in 2 weeks, and so don't call us in the next 2 weeks, I'll lose your number. Email us and say, let's get together and talk. And I'll call this, later on I have a slide coming up, and I want to hit you twice with this. We do battle briefings, where we pull a leadership team in. Now, did this a couple weeks ago and had 3 different pastors come in. Sometimes I get 3 guys from a leadership team. It could be we'd love to have a pastor, 1 or 2 of his guys. Sometimes it's the men's leader and 2 of his guys. Or 3 guys. We've had up to 7. Come in and talk, and we talk for about 3 hours. We buy lunch even for you. But we see who you are, where your men's ministry is now, where are you going to go, and what have you tried to get there? And then we break that all apart, and we're pretty blunt. I mean, people tell us, I had somebody telling me today what they're doing, and I'm thinking, that won't work. I'm sorry, it just, and I'm not trying to be blunt, but you could try things. It's the big picture. Will it work? It's like golf tournaments. How many guys do golf tournaments? The odds are it works for gray hair guys. With a couple of younger guys thrown in there because they're passionate and they don't understand why. It's just a wonderful adventure. Well, because there's issues happening, and especially most churches, they want the younger guys. And they can't figure out why we can't get the younger guys, because you're doing golf tournaments. By the way, you have to understand what you are perfectly designed to produce what you're producing. Yeah, if you've got a Chevy and every 3rd car you produce it misses a bumper, you're perfectly designed. If you don't change, you're going to constantly miss that bumper. That's the hardest thing church culture has. I work with younger churches, church plant right now. I love it because now I've done turnaround churches. That's really hard. That by far is the hardest thing to do. To change a DNA, to change a culture. It costs. I was at a turnaround church. They hired me in to help with this. After 1 year, they nicknamed me the Terminator. Not a thing associate pastor wants to be nicknamed. But the truth of the matter was, we had to get... Now, I went to people and I pleaded with people. Please, we do not want you to leave. But you either get on the bus with this new direction or go to a place where God can use you. You're kicking us out? No, I am not kicking you out. You are walking out. You have to join and be on our bus. But there's only one bus here. And I plead with him. Now, at the end of the conversation, I was kicking him out of the church. I understand that was the reality, and I got over that. Now, that church, we went from 3-something down to 2.25. And they're like, hey, how are we going to pay you now as the associate? That was on the lower part anyway. But then we tripled in size within just a couple years. It's hard. It's extreme. Yeah, the senior pastor at that church came to me and says, Todd, I've been here for 30 years. These people, this one couple, he accepted Christ underneath me 25 years ago. I can't, what you're doing, thank you. Yeah, and he was very thankful. He says, but I just can't do it. His person, he was just a nice guy. And I say that, it's hard. Don't anybody ever think that this leadership, men's leadership, isn't the hardest things you'll do, because you will take some, but you have to change. You have to make choices. And so we're going to be talking about that. Now, I got to keep going because there's some cool facts. Here's some great facts. Now, I got to set the stage a little bit. I have 5 pages of these things. I'm only going to do 2 of them, by the way. Don't freak out. You had mentioned that, a typical church congregation, 61% is female, 39% male. You start putting all these pictures together and you come up with, we really are in trouble. Now, when I say this, by the way, this is going to be a shock, but I need to lose weight, okay? I believe that. I'm a fan of that concept, but I don't believe it. Oops. I am a fan of that. You can know the facts, but unless it changes your life, nope, doesn't help. It doesn't change anything. I'm throwing these facts out because I want to convince you, you have to make some drastic choices to really connect with men and in churches, okay? Now, will this work? Hey there. Okay, let me go back. I might have hit the, okay. 90% boys raised in the church will abandon their church by the age 20, and most won't return. 90%! That's a radical number. There's something happening. We're not discipling men, because they're men at that point. Not discipling their dads. There's something happening. The dads are out of control. 90% of Christian men have never shared their faith with another man. That, again, these should scare the daylights out of us and wake us up and say, we've got to do something. There's that fact about the 17 and 93% chance. That was the... I hate taking people's opinions, so I look all this stuff up and found out, going the wrong way. Okay, here's another one. Yeah, this is interesting, but again, our education system. Education and income is a major issue. More education, the higher your income, okay? 6% of the bachelor's degrees now are from females. What's that going to tell us in 20 years from here? We are giving up being the breadwinners of the family. 2 out of 1 men, for advanced degrees, for every 2 to 1 ratio for women and men. My sister is just retired out of major university. And she invited me to a football game, and I got to sit with the president of the school and all, little school, 45,000 members up to her school. And they had the Senate. I don't know all upper education, but that's the major leaders in the education system. They call them the Senate. Out of this whole table, there was me and 1 other guy. The rest were women. They're taking, and it's not special. The problem is we've given it to them. It's like Ruth and the women in the Bible. They wanted men to lead, so we're going to keep going. For every 10 men in the church, 9 will have kids who leave the church. 1 will, here's interesting, 1 will have a biblical worldview. 90% of the men in your church, this is national average, you can argue this, but in general, 90% of the men do not have a Christian worldview. We are not discipling our men. They attend our parties, but we're not discipling them. And 5 out of the 10 will have major porn problems. Some people debate that even.
Will we be able to get some of these slides?
Yeah. Oh, good point. I've got my business cards here. My name's on everything. Email me, and I will email you the whole thing. Okay? So no problem. Yes, that's how we take care of that, because men don't like writing things. I know that. here's church. And this, again, this is a relationship, church and men. There's no great work of God without the men of God. For every new church that opens, 4 closes its doors. There's been a 19% increase in attendance the last 10 years. 6% of churches are growing in the U.S. Now you hear about all these mega churches, still that percentage is not, most churches are 150 or less. So again, we say that, and I give those stats, and there's so many more, just to say, really, men, we are the issue, and we have to refocus.
Can you go back to that last slide? That Muslim thing.
Okay. Yeah, they talk about religion being not a very manly thing. Monthly, 15,000 men per month convert to Islam in the U.S. A religion that, if you're a woman, you're not in too good a shape. I'm sorry. It is a super male-dominant, I don't know how to put the peg over, religion. Men are interested in religion. It's just, and this is hard talk, it's just not what we offer them. With the disciples, with the fishermen, come join your church. I've had to ask that question, and actually that turnaround church, we were asking that question, and we said no, they probably wouldn't. Well, then that opened up a conversation when you have open, honest conversations. These are hard conversations, because now here's a reality, how many are pastors here? Okay? Do you feel like, and here's a struggle that I understand it being an ex-pastor, but it's still in my heart. Are you saying that everything I've done is wrong? And the issue is no, we're saying you have to change, because now God said, listen, until God gets us our hearts and minds, we're okay, but once we know better, now we are in trouble. But that's what it feels like. I want to caution you, men's leaders, don't go to your pastor and now and say, we've got to do this and we got to do this. No, you have to be respectful and join him where he is, be an asset. But understanding, it comes across sometimes as what I'm doing is wrong. I've been in ministry for 25 years. That we're not saying that. We could be saying that, actually, though. I'm not trying to, I'm not smart enough to have that answer. But be cautious. Now, here's this is my family. See, I was thin at once when I was in Alaska. Actually, I left Alaska and gained 50 pounds. I could not believe it. I thought I was going to lose some more weight, because they always say in Alaska, because of the winters and cold. We were up there for almost 18 years. Most churches, they will focus in right here. If you look at their budget, children's ministry. There was never a budget that I could not get money if I said it's for the children. I went out. Now, that's extremely important. I'm in a church plant. We're 4 years old. We invest heavily in our kids program, because we know young couples, if you're not treating your kids good, they're not going to come back, okay? So I'm not saying that's not right. I'm just saying this is an observation. The next thing is we spend a lot of money on the women's ministry. And then comes men. Most churches, they don't even have a line item. Here's the disclaimer. There are great men's ministries in churches that don't have a men's budget. They expect the men to pay for themselves. And that's true, okay? But this is an indicator. Do you really focus in on men, or do we focus in on everything but men? Because who's responsible for the family? The men. Yep.
The thing is, if you don't focus on that, then we don't have that biblical worldview. The man is the leader.
Yeah.
We did an excellent job with children's ministry, especially at our founding. I've been in my church for about 25 years. And our children's ministry was great. People loved it. The kids were having a great time. And we were growing like gangbusters. And looking back on it, I see we grew wide but not deep. And now we pay the problem for it in that, you just got people flowing out and not developing a biblical worldview.
Yes. Now, this is just how does Noble Warriors come into this picture? We come in and we think the church is the answer, okay? We are not here to do your men's Bible study. We are not here to, we want to train the church, and we do it in multiple different ways. Conferences, that battle briefing, these monthly meetings, Coffee, do a lot of coffee with God. We want to invest into the leadership of the church, who they will reach into the man, and the man then reaches into the family and the community. And that will get us a healthy church. So we're not a parachurch organization that wants to suck out of you. We want to put into the church, and that's a critical thing for us. We charge nothing to anybody. But we'll ask every now and then, hey, if you like what you're doing, support us. But we don't, a church comes in and works with us, we had a church of 2,500 just recently come in. We're working with them and they haven't paid us a penny. That's fine. We have another church last week, I've met with him 3 times. He's probably 50 people, 60 people in his church. That's great. Somewhere in our conversation we do say, by the way, if you like what you're doing, help support us, otherwise we can't do this. So just give you an idea, that's who we are. We're not paid by anybody, we're totally independent background. But that's how we work. I just want to give you an idea, because some of you probably have never seen us. So let's get into mindset. Look at these lists. Which list best describes what your church looks like? Yeah, which side?
The female side.
Ooh, you're not supposed to say that, Stan. You know better. Okay, the cat's out of the head. This is a list from men are from Mars, women are from Venus. Did I get that right? I was going to. Okay, secular book. It describes what women are on the right and what men are on the left. National, the averages I was told, and this is worldwide, 80% of the time, churches describe the list on the right as what their church looks like, a women's church. Now think of it, the apostles, the fishermen. Christ, they've caught fish. Now I'm from Alaska, you do not mess with Guy and his fish or his moose. I mean, that's just, they're catching fish. They're literally having, Christ says, follow me. They drop it and leave. What characteristics did ooze out of Christ to get that type of radical? Now, he had the God thing. I understand that. Okay? But,
little detail.
a little bit. Yeah, we don't want to over-exaggerate. But there's something there. It sure wasn't the right list. Okay?
It's also that, he was able to get them because he had also been working in the community and they saw him, preaching and they heard him and they see this guy that they've heard preaching and he's a powerful preacher and they're like, okay, I want to go with this guy. He's doing great stuff.
He had relationship, but there was a powerfulness that he was a guy's guy. They just, again, the guys in Alaska would not go with the wimp. Now, I share this. This is from a book. I got it. Where's mine? Where did it go to? Wake up.
You can keep it.
Just hit the keypad.
Just down here.
There we go. This is why men hate going to church. If you're in a leadership team, if you've not read this book, you have to do it. It's just, now, do I agree with everything? By the way, I don't like every book 100%. So don't call me upset. Oh, I found out one thing about that book. There's some things. But the concept of this guy, by the way, he's Alaskan, lives up the road from us, where we lived. He just talks about the issue of why men hate going to. It's a book and it's a DVD. And what I love doing is taking a leadership team and watch the DVD.
That's funny.
Did you guys do it?
It's a stitch. It really is.
Well, we're going to watch a quick little video of it. Now, this is about 4 minutes, if my system's working. Okay. I got it. No. I've lost my mouse in that. Oh, we found my mouse. We found the mouse.
One of y'all just stand up and then wiggle, stretch, and sit right back down. Doesn't that feel good? You know why that feels so good? Because you have testosterone in your body and it says you gotta move. Alright, absolutely.
So we sit guys in churches for an hour and a half.
Men gotta move. Some churches, I'll tell you an interesting thing. You know which churches are most likely to have a gender gap, a shortage of men versus women? Anybody know? African American churches. You know why, I think? Because there's a tradition of long preaching in African American churches. Is it? Yeah. How long, last time you were at church, how long did the pastor go? And 2 or 3 hours in the pulpit, right?
Last weekend I was at church 3 hours and 5 minutes. I didn't, that was rough.
You're going to reach a certain kind of guy there, a guy with a lower testosterone level. 47 to nothing at this point.
I just took a clip out of this whole thing.
Worship skill number 5 is this: attention span. All right. So here we are at the beginning of we're 5 minutes into the sermon. We can see we've got Tom and he's doing fine. The men are all locked in at the 5-minute mark. Now let's look at the 10-minute mark. Oh, Tom's eyes are closing a little bit, but we're still okay. Men are basically locked in at 10 minutes. Let's look at 15.
The guy behind him now is too.
Back is definitely praying. Here's the 20-minute mark.
All 3 of them. Third guy's go home.
Here we go, 25 minutes.
And he's been jabbed about 3 times too.
And the whiplash is about to happen. He's going to wake up.
Now, let me be honest. Okay, here we go. Move. Some preachers are better than others. Now, some preachers can hold the audience for 30 minutes, and it's no big deal. But a lot of them can't. Okay? Here's the fact. The average U.S. male has an attention span of 6 to 8 minutes. Study after study has shown that. Now, why do you think that is? Why do you think men can only pay attention well for 6 to 8 minutes?
The segments of the TV show.
Because that's the length of time between commercials.
We've trained him well.
Men to pay close attention for 6 to 8 minutes and then go to the fridge and get a beer. That's what we've done. And so men are used to receiving information in 6 to 8 minute packets. And pastors are realizing this, and they're starting to divide their sermons up into smaller bits. They'll preach for a little while, and something else will happen, and they'll preach for a little while, and something else will happen. And the churches where pastors are doing that are exploding. You ever heard of this guy Rick Warren in Southern California? That's what he does. He doesn't go on and on and on. He preaches for short bits, and then something else happens. Because he knows men have 6 to 8 minute attention span. So here's our final score. Tina 48, Tom nothing. Now, let me reemphasize this fact. Both Tom and Tina are followers of Jesus. Both are born again. Both are going to go to heaven when they die. They're both following him as best they can. Yet the church system is so fine-tuned to Tina's needs, and it's
Okay, we're going to keep moving on. Because I'll...
can't quite get the traction.
Okay, so here's some great resource books. These are all part of your handouts. I'm just going to quickly hit them, touch them, because again, there's so much information. If you like Sticky Church, if you're trying to figure out small group ministries, by far Sticky Church. I'm a big small group guy. That really, he's easy reading. I take every group when we split. My co-leaders and I, we go chapter by chapter. It's only maybe, the book's this thick, but a quarter of it is resources. So I think it's only 120 pages, if I remember, 140 pages. Great small group one. Real Life Discipleship, Jim Putman, out of Idaho. If you're trying to figure out what's discipleship, he really challenged your thinking. They do an excellent job. Again, none of these are perfect, but they're just for leadership development. Guys, as leaders, we have to teach ourselves. We cannot be passive. This is not just a lay ministry where we just show up and do activities. If you want to disciple you guys, you're going to have to devour resources. And I don't care if it takes you forever, it takes you forever. No Man Left Behind, you'll see that pop up several times today. Great men's ministry. They do a great job on rethinking, re-challenging you how to look at men and men's ministry. So you're talking about, I'm doing it. That'll help. Out of these, I'd say grab that one. Sleeping Giants is another one. Now, Kenny, I like Kenny. We've had him as a speaker. He has a DVD set. Don't get the DVD set, okay? He sits there like this, talking on a chair. And he's a nice guy, but best way I could, he's just sort of soft. He just, yeah, I like Kenny. Get the book. If you want the DVD set, come to our office and take a look at it first before you buy it. Okay, we'll be honest with you. Great, it will rethink your thinking of how to look at men's ministry. I'm not going to say, yeah, again, We got to get how do you put tactics together. This is how you do it. Read these books, and this is going to help you rethink your tactics.
It's been 8 minutes.
We're going to another one. Now, yeah.
You have the right side and the left side.
Yes.
It is noticeable that the right side is very reflective of Jesus' first coming, and the left side is very reflective of Jesus' second coming.
I would disagree with you.
I'm sorry?
I disagree with you.
How so?
First coming, he sort of whipped those guys out of the temple. Was that the right side or the left side? That was the left side.
Even my wife could throw people out of the situation when she's provoked anger.
You know, Jesus actually was a combination of those two. It wasn't. He was appropriate. And by the way, 33 series talks about this. Sometimes we have to be a warrior. Sometimes we have to be a friend. Sometimes we have to be a lover. And there's a fourth one. Is king. We have to know appropriateness. But it's not just being a lover and a friend. We have to be the warrior, and that's what's lacking in the churches. We're not, and so those lists just separates them. But reality, we should be both, and understand that. Now, this is a typical men's ministry. We do an activity. Everybody comes. Then we all go home. So you're going to ISI. Everybody's going to come to it. It's going to be wonderful. Okay. And then 3 months later, hey, let's go. When we used to do shotgun shooting, we had 8 throwers. We had pistol range. Bring your kids. We shot everything. It was a blast. Not everybody would go, but we'd get. It was amazing how many guys. And then everybody goes home. Whoops. We create this great momentum. We call this a silo effect. This is your typical men's ministry.
That summertime it goes down.
Yeah. And then at the end of summer, you're going to have this great fishing something at your church, and everybody's going to show up. And then the next one will be maybe fall, Halloween time. Now the key to this, where's the discipleship happening? Now it just doesn't. Let me show you. This is what you have ISI or something like, even the shotgun shoot, but something that creates momentum, excitement that everybody can get back of. Then you say, okay, and before we even start, now this is a critical part. Yeah, this does not work. Here we go. This is one of my sticks here. Oops. Thank you. And I would have. Okay. This is going to be. Huh.
Just hang it over your glasses.
Let's see how that works. Okay. This is critical. This should take you 3 to 6 months before you can get to this point, because you have leadership development to occur. Everybody thinks, hey, next week we'll start this. If you do it, it won't work. Okay? Just tell you right up front. You've got to get a core team, a hot core we call it. It's got to come together. And now it may be 3 guys, 4 guys. It's critical to really think this one out a little bit. You can't do it by yourself. But we call it, you got to have a hot core that comes together, that understands the big picture, that understands why we're doing this. We're not doing this big activity. That's what interesting. Just to bring men out. It's to connect with men. It's to disciple men, to bring them down this journey. So okay, back to here. So you have these guys, you say, okay, we're going to have this great activity, and then right after it, within 2 weeks, we're going to have another one, because we're going to capture momentum. Because these guys are coming out of ISI and say, this is good stuff. I've trained. How do I go from here? Typically, it's like, well, in 3 months, we'll have another activity. No, you have to capture momentum with something specific for guys that are going to reach them. I'm going to show you a 33 that I think is one of the best ones out there at this moment. Short time, 6 weeks, 10 weeks max. Wouldn't go much longer than that. During this time, these guys are inputting into these guys' lives. They're actually here saying, hey, we're going to do something in 2 weeks, in a week. Why don't you come join us? And then during this time, they're coming in and trying to get core guys, 2 or 3 or 4 guys around them that they're developing relationships with. Now the next part is then we call the informal. From there, you say, hey, okay, we've done this. Now, part of all these that you do, they're starting to say, hey, we're loving this relationship. Because this for us, here I use it. We did 33 here, and we had 3 or 4 groups of 8 guys doing it. And during that time, 6 weeks, they're like, man, we're binding. We're getting tight. And how did we get that? Well, that's a whole nother part. But in 6 weeks, you can get tight. They wanna. They're telling me about how their marriages were failing. They're telling me how they're failing as husbands, all different ways within 6 weeks. And they're like, and this is working in my life. So then we say, hey guys, how about we continue this? The official program's over. Why don't we meet unofficially, 3 or 4 of us, for accountability, and not ignorant accountability. You always have to have a sergeant in the group, an NCO, that's going to take his group and keep moving. So this part is the informal. They start splitting up all over the church. And you have, hey, we can meet Thursdays, Panera at 8 o'clock. We can meet Saturday mornings at your house for 1 hour. 1 hour, keep it short. And you start the discipleship. Well, here's what happens. Now, the key on that is you've got new disciples happening in this area, in this informal area. You're not going to get the 50 guys. You might only get 10 guys, 15 guys. That's okay. This is long term. If you can get 5 guys each year, you're discipling them. It's a long-term process. I've been meeting with a new group of guys now for almost 2 years now. 2 guys. We're working through stuff. So this builds. Let me go to the next. Okay, that is my next slide. Okay. Now this is going to be the video. What do you do for the 6 weeks? This is the 33. Let me go back before I walk away from that. So does that make sense? Because this is a critical shift in thinking. You only do this maybe 3 times a year, maybe 4 times a year. This isn't one after the other. Now what we do for 2 months, one of the heavy things that we focus is on reading God's Word. Most guys don't really know how to do it. So it's not a heavy Bible study. I don't prepare. What I tell my guys, read 1 chapter 5 times this week. 1 chapter. Most of them cannot figure out, again, they won't admit this, but eventually they will. Well, we don't get anything out of it. They want me to teach them. And I said, no, I'm not going to teach you. Here's some questions you can ask yourself. What's Jesus doing? What's the purpose? I give them a couple little questions. Answer that each chapter. Well, after about 2 months of doing it, they're starting to catch on how to look at God's Word. Because all they do is read it. They don't look at it. They don't meditate on it. So by hitting 1 chapter 5 times, they start kicking. And then when we discuss it between, at that time there's 4 of us, oh, that's how you saw that. You saw that? I don't teach a thing. I share with what I learned. Each guy shares. I don't lead this. I more massage it. Facilitate it. Very informal. Okay. Now here's a cool thing. What a pastor does. How about if a pastor knew this was happening and he said, "Hey guys, this week, I want you to talk about this one issue. We're talking about this today, but here's a question to ask." Well, now he's going to formal to informal all over the churches. Say if you had 20 of these happening in your church, he's influencing everybody by that one simple question Sunday morning. Formal to informal. It's sort of a powerful way to do it. Yeah, but let me tell you, if you do this forever, guys lose the momentum. It's like a roller coaster. They need the ups, they need the downs. So you got to come back to having a big activity. Now, that doesn't have to be an ISI, that could be in-house. But you need the momentum to come back to. It could be doing 33 again, because there's 4 33s. But you repeat this over, and then you have a gap. Could be a month, could be 2 months. Ours is about 2.5 months max. They start needing something to get their energy back up again. So they come together, 40 of us come back together, we get real excited, then we split off again. Up again, off again. Keep the guy's head going. Any questions, thoughts? Yeah.
Our Saturday morning men's ministry goes between 15 and 20 up, and I'm not the leader, assistant pastor.
Uh-huh.
But we're on our third 33 series, and we're all into it, man. It's wonderful. there's a core that stays, and other guys come and go and cut, and that's okay.
Yeah, that'll happen.
It's wonderful.
You like that?
DVD and the workbooks.
Man, you do any street ministry with that? Is there something with the 33? Is there any street?
Not per se. But outreach, see now here's the interesting, typical church mentality is you get them in the church, you disciple them, and then go do something. Men are the opposite, actually. We've got to, I had no problem unsaved people going on mission trips with me. In fact, I love it. Now, I don't ask them to lead the Bible study, by the way. I'm appropriate. You can take out the garbage. You can feed the poor. You can do, we're taking a group to Turkey. They can come do it, and I want them to see God working around the world. And then they come back and say, well, teach me more about this God. Or they get hooked and they say, I need to know more about this. Well, come to our next one of these meetings. And we start them in that way. That's discipleship. This becomes discipleship.
What are you trying to do, something keying off your create event, or your capture event?
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Yeah, you always have something planned within 2 weeks. If you go beyond that, now, in fact, I've got, again, my sergeants here. That's the 17 years in the military, sorry. Once here comes, they are going to be talking within those 2 weeks. We've divided the groups up, and they've got 5 or 6 guys they'll be talking with to get them to come to that. Now, if 2 of them come, that's great. We expect to lose major chunks. That's all right. As long as at the end of it, we're maintaining 5 or 6, 20% disciples, we think that's ecstatic. Okay, now we're going to watch. This is a part of the 33. I thought so. Here it is. No. There we go.
As you'll see, the same misses of Adam and Eve, fruit and fig leaves, show up in the misses of manhood. For example, men who choose the way of the fruit become childish consumers.
This is fill in the blanks in your workbook, the little yellow highlights.
Mentors. Most men today have their perspective of manhood shaped and defined by modern media. Marketing and advertising agencies have declared that being a man is defined not by what you produce, but by what you consume. They get paid to sell illusions of masculinity to men. Marketers encourage men to be lazy consumers. They advertise cars and clothes and body sprays and other products with an underlying message that these are the things that define your manhood. So you buy into those things in order to declare yourself a man. And men respond by trying to find their total fulfillment through temporary possessions and cheap thrills. We call these guys boys because they act like children in their pursuits, children in their definition of success, children who only think about satisfying themselves and what makes sense to them. These are guys who turn exclusively to fun and vanity and things, hoping to find relief, joy, happiness, escape, and purpose. Take a look at this scene, a lighthearted take on what's a big issue for many men.
Hey, notice that? Did he talk for 30 minutes? 5 minutes, and he's already gone to a clip.
What are you doing?
Totally dominating. That's what I'm doing.
No, I mean, why aren't you dressed and ready to go?
Baby, I'm like a fire tonight.
Tim, this may be the single most important night of my life. I've worked years for this award.
Headshot! Boom! Then go on the back of the building and take out the sentry gun. Honey, we have never made it to this level before.
This is a stupid game.
Oh, that just screams that you don't understand me.
You're right. I don't understand how a grown man could willingly waste hours of his life on a boy's video game.
I will have you know that this is a very manly pastime. What are you trying to do? Steal my manhood? Huh? Wait. Are you trying to neuter me? Is that what this is? Some kind of a secret ploy to dominate this home? Well, I won't stand for it.
Yeah, it's a ploy to make you less of a man.
This is how I express my individuality.
Oh yeah, with the game that sold millions of copies.
How many people do you know with the gamer tag T-Rods T-Dog?
Fortunately, I don't know morons.
And to think that I was going to give you sex tonight.
I'm leaving. You play your meaningless, stupid video game until your heart's content. I'm going. I'm doing this alone.
Hey. If you come back with a better attitude, I may reconsider the sex there. Hey, Ben, I'm back.
So that's 33. Again, eventually there'll be six 6-week sessions with that. Right now there's 4 of them out there. The first one deals with definition of manhood, stages of life of manhood, and then the warrior, king, friend, lover things. Very practical. Now, this is why I brought this up. I just like my new pointer. In churches, what I see, especially with leadership training, not leadership training, but the discipleship, when we talk about discipleship, we always attack at this area here. That's few people show up because it takes high commitment level. You know, we're going to have a Bible study and it's going to last for 24 weeks, and you're going to have Bible memorization, and you have a daily Bible study to do. Now, I agree everybody should be able to do that, okay? Reality is you're not going to get a lot. Now, the first meeting is going to be awesome. You're going to get some of your best guys there. Second meeting is going to be at half as many. And third meeting, you're going to, where did they all go to? Now, 33 attack. Now, again, I said, remember, you need to start here with your leadership team. Get them ready to come up here and attack where 33 hits. 33 is a very broad sense. Now, it might not be at the top, it's down here somewhere. It speaks to people. What I love to encourage pastors is they have a whole multimedia session, take one of their clips and use it in a sermon a month before it. And say, oh, by the way, this great video that applies to the sermon, it's not isolated, is part of the men's ministry we're doing here in 2 weeks. Come join us. But you have guys coming to here that have maturity that will be building relationships with issues that are really basic to guys. What does it mean to be a man? Stepping Up does the same thing. Its first one, we're going to actually hit that right here. But you have to remember, what project are you doing and where does it meet? Small group ministries. It's going to meet somewhere around here, like Bible study, seeking Him. If you're going to, the goal is to keep focusing people downward, yes. But understand, most of you guys are up here. Most of your guys, do I need 2 hands? Are like this, wood. Anybody know what this is? It's a stick. It's called diamond willow. That's what this is. This is what it looks like in the raw in Alaska. You'd go right by it. You would actually not just go by it, you would say, this is a wounded piece of wood. This is broken piece of wood. There's knottiness in it. It looks like, I could say, a big moose antler rubbing on it. It has branches sticking out. There's nothing of value here. This is how guys up here see themselves. Now we can say, oh, you're a new creation in Christ, all things. This is reality. A lot of our studies are basing on the concept this is how they see themselves. We have to talk to them with understanding this truth, but teaching them understanding that they're here. Because what happens? To get this to look like this, and that's what this was taking very precise sanding, very intentional sanding, slow process of journey of discipleship. Now, yes, every man in your ministry, if they're a follower of Jesus, are this, right now at this moment in Christ's eyes. The journey of that, we have to recognize a lot of our churches really pretend we're up here, down here. In reality, it's we're all up there. Most men are up in that area. And even a lot of pastors, when they realize that I'm just as broken as you are, I'm inferior, I struggle with issues. But understand that. That's a powerful thing. That's why testimonies really work good. Now, not home run testimonies, okay? I've never hit a home run in my life. If you hit me with the ball, I'm happy. I got on base, okay? That's what they have to hear. I was like this, and I got a little bit of sanding done, a little carving done. I'm one step ahead of you concept. I actually had a testimony, and I didn't set it up. We had 3 guys got up and give their testimonies of because they weren't Christians. Now, a friend of mine who was elders did that, and I'm like, Is that a testimony? Can you? Because they said, no, I'm not a follower of Jesus. I'm just trying to figure out who this God is. And now, wait a minute. Now, it was the most wonderful thing because all three within a month became believers.
I have something to add to that. I attended a coming of age ceremony at a Unitarian Universalist Fellowship, and about 90% of those children got up there and said that they didn't believe in God, didn't believe in the Bible, didn't believe in Jesus, didn't believe in any of that, and they were applauded by everyone there. And
Yeah.
It hurt. And it's hurting our community.
But there's a part of that, at least they're being honest for the real time. Then you can have real conversations.
I'd rather have a guy that admits he's not a believer than a guy who thinks of himself as a believer because he occasionally goes to church with his wife.
Yeah. That's a big. I love the Northwest because there's more of a black and white issue up there. Here, everybody's a Christian. You're in the Bible Belt. Yeah, my parents went to, my real estate agent, my parents went to church. I'm a Christian.
No, that's what I find ironic. Teaching small groups, you're trying to feed somebody steak, and they don't even have teeth. Somebody sit there that's not even saved, and you wait a second. Yeah, that was a dynamic that I just didn't understand. How could you be in this Bible group? We're talking about the Lord, and you're not even saved. That's the reality.
We're going to actually hit that in a second because that's but this is understanding where people are at. You cannot decide, but this is part of tactics. If you don't understand the group you're going for and really where they are, if you're just assuming they're churchy people, well, that's why we have churches that aren't growing. They're churchy people.
The part that really struck home for me was when those children didn't believe in Christ or didn't believe in God. That's not the part that hit me hard. It's the part that they were applauded for getting up. And it's the leadership that they're lacking there is what hurt.
Well, it's reinforcing what they want them to do.
Yeah. Now, here's a great study. We're going to hit a bit of this. This is Dennis Rainier's Stepping Up. Now, the difference between 33 and this, they're equal, but they're a little different. The guy, well done, 10 weeks. Anybody done it in here? Okay. Dennis Rainier, he has some of the top guys. I bet there's probably 15 speakers. They understand you got to keep your eyes moving and moving.
Dennis Rainier can't spell.
Oh.
Too many P's to step in.
Oh, true. That's why I have one D in my name. Can't spell that one either.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. I saw you.
But this is really good. But this is better for a church group than a group like where I work with more younger guys, because most of the people in this are over 50. Not all of them. There's the Mark Driscoll, there's Matt Chandler in there. Some cooler, the more guys on edge right now. But most of the guys are over 50. Now, do younger guys have to learn from them? Yeah. But I'm just telling you, I've been to it. Okay, I'm not saying not to use it. I'm just saying I understand that this will fit very well at home with a more established church. And we'll do fine in a church plant, but it just has a little bit better bend to it. But it's very excellent done. I can't understate how it is. We have an operator problem.
I don't understand what you're saying the difference is.
Younger guys, my son, he would look at it and say, there's a bunch of old guys there.
Oh.
They're irrelevant to me.
Okay.
And he's a pastor of a church, by the way. But he's pretty blunt, but he has a harder time. I don't say he's right on that, by the way. He struggles with that issue of listening to. We came out here because he said, Dad, I got all these people and they're over 40. Are they worth anything?
So stepping up is in your list here.
Wasn't it in there?
No.
Oh, okay. That was a mistake. Yeah. So this is just a real, again.
Two down from 33.
The great visualization of this.
It's spelled differently.
Stir something deep within us as men that calls us a
It's not a guy sitting behind a pulpit.
I love what
He's
Bill
building
Gates
a
says.
brick wall,
He
a
says
rock
courage
wall.
is contagious.
Strength, power.
When one brave man takes a stand, the spines of others are stiffened. And you know what? If there's ever been a time in our nation's history when we needed men to stand strong with stiff spines, it's today. Remember years ago, I was at a pheasant hunt with a group of guys, and I decided to ask these men my favorite question. Question's this: out of everything you've done in all your life, what is the most courageous thing you have ever done? It's fascinating to watch these guys' response. It's always a puzzled look on their face, and then they contemplate and begin sharing. And over the years, I've had men who shared about rescuing a buddy on a battlefield in a foreign country. I've had other men tell about confronting their father around alcoholism. You know what the number one response I get? I've never done anything courageous. That's their response. I think at the heart of that answer is that men don't understand what courage is.
Didn't talk for very long. That was the whole opening clip. Notice he's moving fast.
Wow. Courage. That was most courageous.
I don't think I can really think of anything I've ever done that's really courageous, to tell you the truth.
Oftentimes we do things courageously that we don't think about at the time we do it.
As far as sort of jumping into the unknown, I think I had no clue what I was embarking upon.
Think about the dangers and think about the possible rewards and figure if you got enough gumption to handle the risk.
That's this guy running down the street with a money bag. I ran out through the front of the bank and chased him down the street. And I eventually caught him, but I didn't realise at the time that he had a knife.
I was in second grade and I saved a kid that was drowning in the pool.
It's scary because he's like pulling you down, you know, and you're like, no. You don't even think about it, you just go and grab him.
Well, it's a 9-year-old. It's like, yeah, I saved his life, but you don't really know how to kind of internalize that.
There was nothing going on my mind because I was probably young and didn't think of the consequences.
God, that's tough. It's not controversial at all. Most courageous person.
In my life, the most courageous person is my mother.
My father.
My daughter.
Courage is really like you have to do it every day. It's like all the little moments where you make the little choices and they add up.
What she's had to go through in her life, the loss of her mother, and carrying forward and everything, she's the most courageous person I know.
I don't know, practically waking up every day, you know, it's the courage and will to live, especially in this city.
To my way of thinking, courage is doing the right thing in every circumstance, regardless of the cost. That's what courage is. Plato had it right. Courage is knowing what to fear and what not to fear. And it doesn't mean what a lot of young people, young men think it means, which is to have kind of ice water in your veins and go into a situation, not be sweating or crying or anything else. It doesn't mean any of that. It means knowing what's worth being afraid of and what's not worth being afraid of.
We make courage about Braveheart. You know, we make courage about an oncoming cavalry and standing your ground. And most of us aren't going to do that. Most of us are going to stare death in the face and smile at it. All right, that's not what most of us are going to do. Most of us are going to raise our children, love our wives, and faithfully serve the body of Christ.
Courage is a radical obedience in the face of what scares you to death. It is not pulling back, it's pressing into your fears, not denying your fears, but it's seeing what needs to be advanced or needs to be accomplished as greater than your personal comfort.
So, actually, we're trying to get that last guy, I can't think of his name, Crawford Loritz, at a Roanoke conference next year. He actually was born and raised in Roanoke. He talks later on, says Courageous is buried and names out the cemetery in Roanoke where his dad was at. Talks about his dad. Now, you made a comment about knowing where guys are at spiritually. I think it was something. Anyway, this is a really good book on this. It's Real Life Discipleship. It talks about the stages of life. And what I like about it is it talks about, here's the language and behavior characteristics of, this would be like an infant. Yeah, it says infant right there. Is ignorance. I found, after reading this, I was surprised when I started looking at guys that I thought was spiritual. I found, wow, they're acting like children. Because the language and behavior characteristic is self-centeredness. I didn't get much out of that Bible study. I mean, I'm not going to, and they talk about self, and I was like, wait a minute, I thought you were, because of your age, you've been in church a long time, I realized he was acting like a child.
Where's this from?
This is Real Life Discipleship. Sort of a neat church.
Turned them in somewhere in the course of their walk, and they weren't normally like a child, and all of a sudden you start seeing that within your ministry.
There could be something happening in their life, yeah. Depression, there's a lot of different things that happen. But those are keys that we tend not to, again, being tactical about it. Understanding where men are spiritually. Because if you understand where they are spiritually, well, why do one study when the other study is more appropriate for them? Why have one expectation? Here's something I just did. One of my main guys, my main sergeants, I thought he was discipling guys. And that was a clue. If you're discipling guys, you're acting like an adult, a parent, spiritual parent. Then I got talking with him, and I had to backtrack because I realized he talked it, but he really wasn't discipling anybody. And it's like, oh, wait a minute, you're more like a young adult. And that's not what I was looking for. I was looking for a spiritual parent to disciple other men to be disciples. So this is a discipler of disciples. But it was only until I had a conversation I perceived that he was. And then in reality he really wasn't even. If you're a parent, you will disciple people. That's just a reality. You understand it. Formal, informal, doesn't matter. But again, these type of resources are really important to understand where your guys are at so you can develop your program. If you don't know where they are, you're shooting in the wind. You don't know what you're hitting. And most churches are assuming everybody's, again, in this or this group here. When I would say 80% of your people are in these two groups.
Doesn't matter the age.
No, age has nothing to do with it. Yep. And that's what caught me with this guy. He's 55 years old, a doctor, very well connected, very active in our church. But since I had these conversations, is God-centered, but and others-centered, but he wasn't reaching outward. A parent reaches outward.
Well, part of why you misdiagnose people in churches, a guy could be, say, a doctor, and he's got interns working for him. He's got that's his career outside the church, but inside the church, he's moving back down someplace else.
Yeah. And truthfully, we tend to.
You take that doctor, and because he's got that outside the church, now you make him a leader in the church, and he has no clue of how to be a leader in the church.
Yep.
You make him an elder.
You don't know how to change his demeanor to admit that he's not an adult. He needs to calm back down. He needs to get straight.
But look at the signs everyone sending. Oh yeah, well he must be, but in his heart.
Tom, how much of this is personality too? Because there are some people that are, say, more engaging. They may groove on leading a small group, doing this.
Mm-hmm.
Where there's another guy who, and I can think of a couple in this category, that they're deep spiritually, but they'd be rather out working on a car and building something and talking one-on-one to somebody.
But even in that, are they discipling? We're called to be disciples. It didn't say, some of you, all are. So now, some people just do one person at a time? Yeah. I got a guy that is 8 guys. He makes contact with 8 guys a week. And it's like, I want 5 more of you. But honestly, the guy that's working in the car can be as more. I mean, again, it's the parable of sowing.
That's where the small groups can break out when you have something in common with somebody.
Yes.
When you have a bond with somebody. If some guys are hunters, some guys are fishermen, or that way you can develop those bonds and go out with them. Then you can disciple. You get a group setting.
Yes.
Everybody's different. Everybody in this room's got a different interest, I guarantee. But so you can reach some of us, but it's going to be the breaking out.
There's the informal groups, the 2 and 3 or 4.
Where it has to continue.
Now, here's an interesting thing that most people believe about younger people, okay? They don't want to be around adults. That's not true. All my ministry is with younger people. Our small groups are mostly younger people. They're looking for godly, spiritual men. We're just not showing it to them.
Mostly because we don't know how to do it.
That's
true. Why you have to
and this is a hard, again, I keep harping on this. This is a journey of hardness. This is not easy to get here. You got to work it.
Yeah, a lot of churches are really hurt by, they hire a youth minister
To do the job.
to do the job of discipling their kids and stuff. And he's a child himself.
Yeah. How ridiculous it is. Now, here was something that showed, when we started shifting our church to men, the turnaround church I was in, we said, no, our youth guy said, no, wait a minute. When I call up a family, what the dad does, talk to my wife. And so we said, now, from now on, you ask for the husband, not for the wife. And say, no, I don't want to talk to your wife. I want to talk to you. We're now putting the responsibility back. And you go, what? Now, it's really sort of funny, their response. Hey, we're having, and you start making him the spiritual leader. Whether he acts, I don't care if he's a drunk, we don't care. We are going to make sure he knows that we're calling him up. And the youth guy said, I never even thought of doing that. Very simple little concept. That's from the book Orange, by the way. Andy Stanley ministry. But it's just it really started transforming what we're doing just by looking.
You need to understand the warfare that we're in. The secular culture has told men they're idiots since the 70s. They're like Married with Children and all these stupid shows that portray the man, the husband's the idiot, and the woman's in control.
Yeah.
Men have lost their role. They don't know who they are.
And our churches are resembling that. That's where we tend to be passive.
Shift. But the women are trying to do the man's role.
Yeah.
Well, I think the kids are trying to do the man's role. The kids are portrayed as the smart people in the family, and the parents are idiots.
Yeah. And here's another clip, because this is a fairly new one this past year. In fact, part of it just came out this past month, called Follow Me. David Platt. It's a different one. It's the whole concept. Well, he's going to explain it. So I just want to show you. I'm not sure how much we're going to even get to see this one. Okay, I'm going to have to work on this on my... Yeah. Is that loud enough?
A little bit louder.
Went straight up to my wife, gave her a big kiss on the lips, and she kind of stepped back and said, what was that? And I said, well, it says here in my husband manual that when I get home from work, I'm supposed to give you a kiss. And clearly, that would not be a good thing. What's most important is what you would think of me. What would my wife think of me if that's what I did? In marriage, love is not a product of duty. Love is primarily about delight. And if that's true in marriage, then how much more should that be true in the life of a follower of Jesus? We don't follow him. We don't do what he says just because we have to. Okay, well, this is what it says in the Bible, so this is what we do. No, we follow Jesus because we love Jesus. Because we long for communion with him. We desire obedience to him. But if we're not careful, even some of the most basic things in the Christian life, like praying, reading and studying the Bible, and even sharing the gospel, can become a lot more about duty than about delight. And so we need to constantly step back and look at our hearts and evaluate our affections. Are there things in this world that we're giving our affections to more than we're giving our affection to God? Are there things in this world that are stealing away our affections from love for God? And to evaluate, how is prayer and studying the Bible, even sharing the gospel, tied to feeling for Christ, desire for Christ, longing for him? This is essential.
As a disciple of Jesus, we obey him, not primarily out of duty, but fundamentally out of desire and delight in him.
Now this speaks really loudly. Teenagers would love this. Younger guys.
I hope you do. Let me invite you. Open with me to John chapter 6. John 6, and in just a second we're going to start there in verse 22. While you're turning there, I'll tell you a story.
Get this one story out, then we're going to move on.
Is key lime pie. And my wife is a great
Oh,
cook.
we're going to keep going. I got my time's running out. Great story. Great news series. Hits the issue. Another one that's not a fan, a follower of Jesus. This issue, especially in the Bible Belt, am I a fan of Jesus or am I really a follower of Jesus? And that's what he's hitting on there. This is David Platt. He's saying, "Call, follow me." Are we going to follow him or just know about him? Powerful 6 week.
Not a fan of him also?
No, that's I never pronounce his name. Excellent one. Eidelman. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Another excellent. We're going to slip through. You heard about the manger build. You should do this if you're not doing it. What I love about the manger build, you'll see a video this afternoon about it. Christmas time, I've always struggled how to get the guys to be the spiritual leader. Christmas is so chaotic. So, we would do gingerbread houses. And I get 5 guys to show up. I didn't even like showing up, but you're supposed to when you're the pastor. That was one of the things. I've never been in a place where when we did this, I only had 30 guys show up. And it was such a simple project, built a simple little manger, but like my son, who's a university guy, he can't build anything. He built it, not a problem, because there's coaches there. And it really is not about a fun day for the kids, except this is how you set it up. Husbands, give your wife, the Saturday before Christmas off. The morning off, not the whole day. Now you are a winner. You've hit a base hit with the wife. Get the kids up, cook them breakfast, come down to the church. There's an hour zone, 2-hour zone. They don't have to be there at a time. It's just come and put this manger together. It's a real simple thing, manual with pictures. Now, during it, there's coaches walking around, encouraging, making this guy a winner. Even though he is bending every nail, it doesn't matter. We'll pull him out and give him another one. At the end, we say, now, dads, go home, put this manger in front of your tree. Take your kids out to lunch. Go buy mom a Christmas present. Go home and put this in front of the tree and say, for me and my household, we follow Jesus. Before the tree, before the presents. For 90% of the guys, it's the first time they've ever been the spiritual leader of their household. He's a winner. One day, base hit, double, you can call it whatever you want. It's simple. Now, part of the package is, and we tell the coaches, pull out this one worksheet that gives the daily devotions for a week. These devotions are this big. There's 4 lines to them. Extremely simple. And say, put this on the refrigerator and remind Dad about the nightly devotions. Now, the devotions are always based around the manger. So each night he's saying, Jesus is first in our household. He's doing this simple little devotion that a little kid understands, and the wives are saying, wow, this is pretty cool. Now, if he's really slow and doesn't read, we have a QR code on it. He can sign up and get an email each day with a 5-minute video, roughly, of what the devotion is. The church now for a week has had spiritual leaders. Then there's resources to help them go on. But the manger build's a great way to teach dads how to be the resource leader, spiritual leader. I'm going to zip through. This guy, what is my time? Okay, I'm over. Eric Mason, excellent African-American guy. We were trying to get him here this year, actually. Ricky was actually their second choice.
2 words, manhood.
Is that 2 words? On his thing, I believe that is. Yeah. I am not, by the way. Here's a couple last points before you get going, because we are not, we can't answer everything here. The battle briefing that I talked about, we have you guys come in, we talk about what's the mission of the church, what's the goal of the men's ministry, what's the leadership development, what's the goal of your pastor, because he has to be part of this. and we sit down with you it usually takes 3 hours, and we always ask at the end of the day, okay, do you have a plan for next year now? That's our goal. Do you have a concept of where you want to go for a year? And they always answer, yes. Now we understand. This is how this package goes together. We had 2 churches just recently. Both of them had 500% increases in their men's ministry. Now, that sounds really impressive, and we really like that, especially when they come back to us, honestly. But
started with 1, it's not been
yeah. Well, actually, it was a church of 1,000. One was a church of 1,000. One was a church of 150. But what that showed us is, okay, now you're learning how to talk man language. Doesn't mean you're still discipling them. There's that other phase that is critically important. You got to have people behind you, otherwise you're just walking. That's where they're at. Now let us help them, and we're working with them to now make sure they're being disciples. That's this battle briefing. That's what we do and we love to do. Next thing, and I have a sheet for you. This is where I'm going to close in with. Please take one on the way out. I want you to handle it as the way out. Monday night at your church, Stan's church, Spotsylvania Presbyterian Church, we come up once a month. And there's a group of guys, we call them the Noble Warriors North guys. And they come together and we talk about, okay, you had this ISI, what are you going to do with it? Okay, and it's a place where we can process information, where we can talk about men's ministry to encourage you as men's leaders. Also a place where you can get resources. We'll be talking about, every time we come together, we'll talk about a new resource. So it's maybe 2. We're still trying to figure that out. But a way to encourage you one evening once a month. So we'd love to have you at Stan. You got to let them know because they're buying food. Very important issue. It's at 6:30 at his place. Right, Stan? Yeah. Steak? What is a lobster? Steak? What? Steak and lobster. Okay, we'll hold you to that. Any last questions? Okay. Please come by our table down below. I got a name tag. I got to get something away. I like giving stuff up. Anybody thought that Why Men Hate Going to Church video was interesting? Did it have any value?
That is a funny video.
Who wants one? 1, 2, 3. S1 guy. I'll give it to. Sorry, he wins. Okay, I got another book. Now, here's a resource book. This is the guy that's speaking this afternoon. I got 5 of these to give away. This is Effective Men's Ministry. This gives you concepts and tools to use. So we're going with back row this time. Different churches. We'll get one there, one that. Back row guys. All the way over there. Yeah, back row. He wins. They're actually, if you want to buy them, they're at the bookshelf. I don't agree with everything but again, this is a process of wrapping your heads around men's ministry, not a program. Now, there are some great programs out there, and if you're looking for a program, I'm happy to tell you about them, okay? But I would rather have God and the Holy Spirit work in your team, not you, your team, and give you ideas on how to develop this. Because each situation, the whole issue of tactics is each situation is unique and special. Weapons are the same, but the tactics change, and you need what's going to work for your guys. I don't know that. So let me end in prayer, and we'll get going. Hey, God. We should have started here. Yeah. And I'm sorry for that one. Because without you speaking through me, without you touching our hearts, we're just a bunch of dumb rocks. Because it's really about life transformation in these guys' life, in their men's lives. They're here because they're passionate about men. Lord, I just pray that they will hear from you, that they will be stubborn about this journey, that they will have a passion that will go out and to reach men. But God, again, it's because of what you're doing in our lives. It's the Holy Spirit working. It's amazing that you love us and care for us, that you allow us this privilege, Lord. Thank you for being that type of God. And may we honor you with our walk and our talk this afternoon. In Christ's name, amen.
I trust this message has provided practical encouragement to you in your journey with Christ. Please visit noblewarriors.org to learn more about how Noble Warriors works to help churches reach and build men. God bless you, friend.